Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming and joining us. Yay. Okay, so I'm Katie Barnett, and this is Mike Hughes.
Hi, guys.
And we're organisers from Melbourne, in Australia. Very, very far from here. So what we want to talk to you today about how we, about a year ago, 18 months ago, the Melbourne GDG was pretty much run by one organiser who was very passionate but did everything himself. In the last 18 months, we've scaled from 1 to 8 organisers, of which we are 2. We've gone from 12 events to over 30 events per year. And grown our membership along with that. And we have gone from just Android-only topics now to many topics such as Assistant, Flutter, even a bit of React Native sometimes. We'll take anything. So as I mentioned, we pretty much had approximately 20 attendees per event. So quite small, intimate groups, and we didn't know how many attendees would come in each event. So it was really hard to plan. So we had to plan everything very last minute. So the main organiser, Luke, very passionate, very dedicated, did a great job, but he had to spend a lot of time on each event, which is really hard because he has a family, kids, a life, a job, like the rest of us. And so it was really hard to plan everything last minute, especially when you have attendances that are uncertain, you don't know how much food to organise, and you just don't know what to prepare. We did have some sporadic assistant organisers, just helping out really specialised things like socials or DevFest, stuff like that. They were enthusiastic but didn't really make any decisions and didn't take ownership for their tasks. So a change was needed.
Hi, guys. I'm Mike. So a change was needed, and one of the things we wanted to do was scale GDG Melbourne. So one of the things you need to decide, though, when you're scaling your group from a one-man show to up to 8 organisers, you need to figure out, okay, exactly what do you want to scale? So there is a few things to take note of. If Melbourne's anything like your city, where you're an organiser, often the groups distill into 2 distinct groups. So the GDG General Group, which is what GDG Melbourne is, and the GDG Cloud Group, which focuses almost exclusively on GCP, Google Cloud Platform. But that's okay because Google Cloud Platform is big enough and broad enough for them to spend all their time doing those topics. As the GDG General Group, we have the burden of doing the rest. So we came from doing Android originally into Firebase, our core, you name it, we've got it all the way through. We also, though, did want to change our events. So rather than just a monthly meetup, we wanted to get into different event types. And since then, we now run monthly hack nights and similar sorts of special events. We also wanted to diversify the organisers and volunteers themselves. So we wanted to make sure that the organising group was quite diverse. Katie is our only girl.
No,
yes.
Karen.
No? Oh, Karen. Sorry, Karen's our only girl. Sorry, Karen. But we wanted to diversify and get more volunteers, more organisers, and go forward. The other thing we knew too is we wanted to, or we knew what was coming through in the membership and the attendees was it wasn't just a pure segment. Like it wasn't all Android devs. It was people interested in different topics. So the question is, how can you deliver more value for your community? Think about that for a second, because it's actually a big question and it's not that easy to answer. So for us, more value was probably getting a few more people and a few more seats.
So for us, it was also working out how to organise better. And one of the things was that you need to be a bit bossy. I like to call it assertively organised, which is me. And Mike, actually, though he denies it. So you need to be able to organise your organisers. You need to build yourselves into a cohesive team. Kind of like going into battle, you need to know your hierarchy. You need to know what everybody's special role is so that you can be effective and efficient. So life happens. We all know this. Work happens, family happens. you're not going to have 100% of your day to spend on GDG. If you do, your GDG chapter is really, really lucky. But for the rest of us, you're going to have times when you're busy, other times when you're really, really quiet and you can spend heaps of time on GDG. But if you bring on more organisers, you're going to gradually be able to add more and more people so that you'll get a nice even spread over the year. And so hopefully with all your organisers, you'll be able to keep that momentum all throughout the year. And everybody can get time to spend time with their families, have a holiday, get busy at work. So you need a bit of organiser diversity. It's really great to follow our usual diversity plans by getting more women involved, getting more other ethnic backgrounds, getting more people with other needs or disabilities. But you also need types of people. So these can be, like myself, quite bossy and organised. But it also helps to have other people as well. You need somebody who's a leader. You need somebody who is going to lead the community and be the driving force. But then you need, as I said, us assertively organised people. We're the people that get things done. But you need followers. And I don't want follower to be something disparaging. It's something really good. People who are willing just to take a little bit of direction and do a job and feel proud to do that job. But they're happy not to take control of everything. Some people are like that and they don't want the responsibility, but you can happily hand over a small task to them. They're really important and you should be really grateful for them. And then there's your volunteers. These are people who help maybe with DevFest, maybe other events, maybe just help greet people when they arrive at the door. These are people who just help once off and are great to keep involved. You don't want to get too many cooks in the kitchen. So you don't want too many community leaders. You don't want too many bossy people, and you don't want too many followers. You just want enough that everything's going to keep ticking along, even if people have time off. And of course, there are many ways to get new organisers. These should usually come from your community, or you can even advertise for them or speak to students. A lot of people are looking for ways to improve their resumes, and being a GDG organiser can be great for that. And you can have people start in these various different roles and move up the chain depending on how much they'd like to be organised, how much they'd like to be involved.
Okay, so wearing different hats. So what Katie just said about diversity of organisers and volunteers and stuff goes as well for wearing different hats. So within our GDG group, we have different roles, and that's actually essential. So within a group of 8 organisers, you can understand, like, as Katie said, if there's too many cooks in the kitchen, stuff's going to get burnt, right? So you don't want that. So we actually actively have roles that we move around. Thank you, Katie. So these are some of our roles that we actually have. We have roles like lead, MC, socials, front of house, pizza, that sort of thing. I'll go into the roles in a minute, but
it's important to note these roles are for each event, not necessarily for the community as a whole.
Yes, but these help us kind of keep organised, keep focused, and also make sure that the events aren't too busy. There's not too much on one person's shoulder. Another thing we learned quite quickly too was don't let one person do everything. Really, really, really important. So situations arise when you're running a meetup, as you know. Things will happen like if you're being the MC and you're giving a talk and you're the lead and the lifts get locked out, you can't do anything about it because you're on stage. So
I actually had a nightmare about that.
It actually happened. There's many things happen. So the other advantage too by having roles is you get to change those roles around. So nobody wants to go meetup after meetup after meetup, month after month doing audio visual. Or maybe Max does, but yeah, generally people don't want to do the same role. So we mix it up and change roles. You also need to make sure that those roles have backup baked in. Life happens, it rains, especially in Melbourne. People can't get to events, public transport strikes, especially in Melbourne. And all this sort of stuff happens, right? So you need things like a 2IC just to have a bit of a backup. So a couple of key roles I'll quickly touch on that aren't perhaps quite so obvious about what they do within our little hierarchy of GDG organisers. So the event lead. So this is the person that we give lead per event, but they are that true lead. So if it's one particular organiser and they decide, I don't want to do name tags this month, then we kind of follow that decision. We give them and we give them that power to make those overriding decisions. And the event lead does things like a lot of the pre-events, like often puts up the meetup page, make sure the image is nice, adjusts the wording, that sort of thing. They also control the event during when the event's actually going. And I know when I lead the group, I don't like to be either the MC or doing a speaking gig. If I'm lead, I want to focus on doing lead because stuff happens during the meetup, every single meetup, despite us doing it dozens, if not hundreds of times. And I want to be able to jump on that stuff. So that's why I prefer to be lead only. And then you also follow up the bits and pieces at the end too, like socials, like all those great photos that you took. Okay, who's posting them and make sure they go up? Well, someone's got to do that, and that person is the lead. One other key role that we put in place in the last little period that's been really important. Oh, by the way, that guy with red beard is Luke. He's that one-man band person that Katie talked about at the beginning. But front of house. Now, front of house is actually a hospitality term. So what is front of house? Front of house is literally what you see there in the photo. It's someone standing either in the foyer or the entrance to your meetup venue. We've got a banner, as you can see in the background. Sorry, it's old branding. And usually there's a couple of people there standing, greeting people as they arrive. And so this gives you a few advantages to help make your meetup smoother. It gives everyone their first impression, so they can see the sign, they can wander across the foyer, figure out where to go, do all that sort of thing, and you give them a nice welcoming, hi, how you doing? Welcome to GDG. You also can collect important information. So say one particular month you want to know something, you can ask people a question when they check in, effectively when they come to front of house. You can check off things like, gender. Okay, this person's got an unusual name. I don't recognize what the gender is. You can figure out what gender they are and log that data. You can also manage, and I'll get into these roles in a second, all these attendee groups, the waitlist and walk-ins. So everyone knows what a waitlist is, right? If you fill up your event, you got people that overflow, they're the waitlist. The walk-ins are the slightly more annoying attendees who come along with friends. Like sometimes we've had events where one person signed up for GDG and brought 4 friends. So these are the walk-ins that you also have to manage. So front of house is really, really handy as well to help manage those.
Especially for our particular event, we're lucky enough to have a Google office in Melbourne, which is fantastic, except it has a really limited capacity. So we can get, I think it's 74 people per meetup. If we go over that, they won't let us have it there anymore because of the fire code. So front of house is really important because we need to make sure that we don't let more people in than we're able to take.
So a couple of the other roles that we use, and this will be different for each GDG group depending on how big your team is. Things like socials, so someone posting socials before, during, and after. Second in command is really important. I actually like being second in command, to be honest, because if you're lucky and nothing goes wrong, you kind of get to cruise, right? Second in command is kind of good, but second in command is kind of like the backup just in case something happens. Master of ceremonies, obviously that's the person that controls the stage, does the intro, manages the speakers, etc. And of course, audio video. We actually record all our events, so someone's actually got to focus on that. And that's a whole role within itself because of all the tech setup. Like you guys know as organisers, when you record stuff, technology, it goes wrong. Cables break. I left a cable at home. I left my power source at home. Bugger, what am I going to do? So that's a whole role all by itself.
So you need to plan for the year ahead. This was something that we did at the start of this year, and it really, really helped the team. So we sat down as a team with some food and assigned each event out for the next, I think for us it was about the next 10 months. Don't worry about all this. We've got some resources later for you. But we pretty much assigned every event out. We assigned the roles. It didn't have to be to every single role, but we assigned a lead and a 2IC for every event. And this made sure that the same person wasn't organising, say, 3 events in a row. Or we could make sure that we worked around people's holidays. I'm going away in June, for example. So I said, look, I can't do May or July, but September, October, I'm great. So I'll be organising things around that time. And making sure that the same person isn't on the same role, unless they really want to be. We have Max who does our video recording. He's happy doing that role most of the time. but we also like to share the other roles amongst our different people. And this helps us bring more diversity, such as gender diversity, to the stage. So we can give people roles that they wouldn't usually take and get more women on stage speaking, doing MC, that sort of thing. It also gives us the advantage of organising our speakers well ahead of time. So if you know that you're going to have a meetup on a particular day in August, and it's now February, you can go out and try and find those really cool speakers for August. You can go speak to Googlers, GDEs, other people in your community, because usually people need a bit more time than just 1 month to accept to come to a meetup and prepare a talk. If you can give them heaps of time and maybe schedule it for times that there's a new announcement coming or something like that, you're more likely to get them on board, and you might be able to help them organise travel and things like that. And of course, use your tools. We could have done a whole talk on which tools we use and how we use them, but pretty much use what you're comfortable with and what works for you in your community and what works for you in your geography. These are some of the ones we use a lot. Anything that's cloud-based you can share is really good.
Okay, run sheets. Who knows what a run sheet is? Anybody? I know you know. A couple of people. Okay, let me explain run sheets. So to start off with, run sheets makes things smoother. So a run sheet is effectively just a checklist, but let me explain why it's important. So the way we came out with run sheets for pretty much every meetup and every hack night and even special events was that what we noticed, being a group of 8 organisers, whenever we had an event coming up, we'd be on Slack and we'd be chatting. We'd be chatting about the same stuff. And you can almost look back in the Slack history and all the questions and answers would all be pretty similar, right? What are you doing? Have you got this? Have we done that? Where are we going? What are we doing? What time's this? What's that? Same stuff over and over and over again. So there had to be a better way, and run sheets is our solution to that. So a run sheet is, as I said, just a checklist, but it's a kind of a central plan for everyone to follow, which cuts out about 80% of all that Slack chat just before the event. It's also something that lead role that I talked about earlier kind of usually drives to get the run sheet right. And by the way, this is the run sheet's usually only like 20 lines long, something like that. It's not complex. Like Katie showed in the last couple of slides, like we're not talking revolutionary tools here, just basic tools. Like who would have thought? A calendar for scheduling stuff. Who would have thought? And a run sheet's just a checklist. And usually we split it into before, during, and after because they're pretty much the key sections of your meetup. So why a run sheet? Okay, don't forget is at the top of the list because I once forgot to order food. And I'd run this same event over and over and over again. I thought I knew it back to front. I knew it perfectly. Yep, forgot to order pizza. So it's good for you as well, even if you're a seasoned person, because it also makes it easy. I know if I'm the lead for an event and I'm doing this event in a couple of days, I just go look at my run sheet. I've got a busy life. I'm doing stuff. I know that way I won't forget about anything. So tick it off the list and bingo, I know it'll be smooth. It also makes the meetup events easy for you as the lead or someone who's one of the main people on the meetup. It also makes it repeatable and consistent. So one thing we noticed is if we were going to achieve our goals for where we wanted to take GDG Melbourne, we had to make sure that what we're doing got easier. So we got comfortable with what we're doing so that we could go further and improve the meetups that we're doing. So a run sheet helps make it that repeatable, consistent experience. The other thing we noticed too was that if you had different leads, if we didn't have the run sheet, the experience for the members was different. So different leads have different personal focuses on what they think is important. A run sheet allows us to make sure it's consistent. So members and attendees know what to expect and they know we run good events. It's also good for first-time organisers. So as Katie said, if you're hitting a busy point in your life and you want to step down and suddenly you don't want to be a lead for a little while, you kind of go, great, I'm taking leave. Katie's going away in June. That's fantastic. Uh-oh, I've got to hand over to someone. Who's it going to be if the other 8 are busy? How do you get that person up to speed? Well, the easiest way is to sort of give them the run sheet. It gives them a great crutch to lean on to get going and to just understand the basics of running our meetup.
And that can actually be really helpful because if you hand the run sheet to somebody who's new, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions like, what does this mean? Or have we forgotten something else? And that will help you realize, oh, there's like a hole in this. And you can fill it with the steps that you've obviously just kept in your memory but never actually written down. So it can really help just to give it a trial with somebody junior.
At the end, we'll give you a couple of examples of run sheets we use. They're pretty basic. So what happens when you get really, really popular? So we went through this problem.
Which coincided with the Google office coming to Melbourne.
Yes, which was lucky. So we had this problem where, and we got really, really popular. So we really had to tightly manage things like the RSVP people. So the people RSVP, yes. The waitlisters, which was the overflow, and the no-shows. If you're anything like our meetup, yeah, you're going to have problems with managing particularly waitlisters and no-shows. One of the things you might want to do is open RSVPs 1 or 2 weeks only before the event. And that actually helps you get a better attendance rate. So one other thing we did note too was that what we thought was maximum value was filling up the venue. And just so you guys get a quick idea, this is kind of what a typical series looks like. Typically we open the event, so we set up the pre-event stuff X days prior to RSVP's opening, typically 3 to 5 days. Then we open RSVPs 1 or 2 weeks before the event, and then we actually send out a reminder email at noon on the day of the event. One of the things that we like to do too is do attendance tracking. So we grab a whole bunch of data about who's coming, whether they're turning up, all that sort of stuff. You really, really need to know your no-show rate.
So the last thing I want to talk about is preparing for the unexpected. Just a few little things that we've experienced. The first thing I can say is the best thing to prepare for the unexpected is bring your baggage. We found that having the organizer kit, you know, that everybody's got random things they bring to every meetup. We want to make sure you bring it with you. Have somebody in charge of bringing it. Like it needs to have a responsible person that is going to make sure it turns up on time. And a carry-on suitcase with wheels makes this super easy. You can bring it along to every event, drag it behind you, drag it across the city as we've done, and you make sure that you've got the things you need in it. Things like clipboards and pens, random swag, your speakers and helper gifts, blue tack, raffle tickets, all the dongles you need. So you can get through some of these unexpected hurdles. One thing we'll talk about is we call raffle tickets the duct tape of meetups. This is because we've used raffle tickets for handling every crisis. So we've had an occasion where we had a survey for the attendees, and we were going to give out a door prize to get people to send back the survey, except we forgot to actually collect emails or names with that survey. So we couldn't actually know who to give that to. So we quickly, on the fly, pulled out some raffle tickets and checked people's confirmation emails and handed them out the raffle tickets so we could draw the prize. So as I said, yeah, swag bribery as well. Great way to get people to turn up on time to events. If you give it away in the first 5 minutes, they have to be there in order to receive it. Also for surveys as well.
You forgot to mention that I was the person that screwed up.
Yes, it was Mike. It's also good to provide mentoring for novice speakers. This ensures quality and predictability of your speakers. If you've got somebody who's really new to speaking, get them to run it through it with you first, a couple of days beforehand, over Hangouts or something similar. And at least then you'll know they'll go to time, they will have quality slides, and they'll feel more comfortable on the day, and so will you. Lastly, accept that things will fail. Take it on as a team and don't assign blame to any single person. It's a group decision, all of this. Even if you do have leads or do have people responsible for certain roles, take it on as a team. Like, oh, we failed. That's okay. We'll do better next time. And just learn from it. Don't assign blame that the single person made the bad choice. So, thanks everyone.
Questions?